Book 3, Chapter 21. How it happened that Hannibal, pursuing a course contrary to that taken by Scipio, wrought the same results in Italy which the other achieved in Spain. Some, I suspect, may marvel to find a captain, taking a contrary course, nevertheless arrive at the same ends as those who have pursued the methods above spoken of, since it must seem as though success did not depend on the causes I have named. Nay, that if glory and fame are to be won in other ways, these causes neither add to our strength nor advance our fortunes. Wherefore, to make my meaning plain, and not to part company with the men of whom I have been speaking, I say that as, on the one hand, we see Scipio enter Spain, and by his humane and generous conduct at once secure the goodwill of the province and the admiration and reverence of its inhabitants, so, on the other hand, we see Hannibal enter Italy, and by methods wholly opposite, to wit, by violence and rapine, by cruelty and treachery of every kind, effect in that country the very same results. For all the states of Italy revolted in his favor, and all the Italian nations ranged themselves on his side. When we seek to know why this was, several reasons present themselves. The first being that men so passionately love change that, commonly speaking, those who are well off are as eager for it as those who are badly off. For, as already has been said with truth, men are pampered by prosperity, soured by adversity. This love of change, therefore, makes them open the door to anyone who puts himself at the head of new movements in their country. And if he be a foreigner, they adopt his cause. If a fellow countryman, they gather round him and become his partisans and supporters, so that, whatever methods he may there use, he will succeed in making great progress. Moreover, men being moved by two chief passions, love and fear, he who makes himself feared commands with no less authority than he who makes himself loved, nay, as a rule, is followed and obeyed more implicitly than the other. It matters little, however, which of these two ways a captain chooses to follow, provided he be of transcendent valor, and has thereby won for himself a great name. For when, like Hannibal or Scipio, a man is very valiant, this quality will cloak any error he may commit in seeking either to be too much loved or too much feared. Yet from each of these two tendencies, grave mischiefs, and such as lead to the ruin of a prince, may arise. For he who would be greatly loved, if he swerve ever so little from the right road, becomes contemptible, while he who would be greatly feared, if he go a jot too far, incurs hatred. And since it is impossible, our nature not allowing it, to adhere to the exact mean, it is essential that any excess should be balanced by an exceeding valor, as it was in Hannibal and Scipio. And yet we find that even they, while they were exalted by the methods they followed, were also injured by them. How they were exalted has been shown. The injury which Scipio suffered was, that in Spain his soldiers, in concert with certain of his allies, rose against him, for no other reason than that they stood in no fear of him. For men are so restless, that if ever so small a door be opened to their ambition, they forthwith forget all the love they have borne their prince in return for his graciousness and goodness, as did these soldiers and allies of Scipio, when, to correct the mischief, he was forced to use something of a cruelty foreign to his nature. As to Hannibal, we cannot point to any particular instance wherein his cruelty or want of faith are seen to have been directly hurtful to him. But we may well believe that Naples, and other towns which remained loyal to the Roman people, did so by reason of the dread which his character inspired. This, however, is abundantly clear, that his inhumanity made him more detested by the Romans than any other enemy they ever had, so that while, to Pyrrhus, in Italy, with his army, they gave up the traitor who offered to poison him, Hannibal, even when disarmed and a fugitive, they never forgave, until they had compassed his death. To Hannibal, therefore, from his being accounted impious, perfidious, and cruel, these disadvantages resulted. But, on the other hand, there accrued to him one great gain, noticed with admiration by all historians, namely, that in his army, although made up of men of every race and country, no dissensions ever broke out among the soldiers themselves, nor any mutiny against their leader. This we can only ascribe to the awe which his character inspired, which, together with the great name his valor had won for him, had the effect of keeping his soldiers quiet and united. I repeat, therefore, that it is of little moment which method a captain may follow, if he be endowed with such valor as will bear him out in the course which he adopts. For, as I have said, there are disadvantages incident to both methods, unless corrected by extraordinary valor. And now, since I have spoken of Scipio and Hannibal, the former of whom by praiseworthy, the latter by odious qualities, effected the same results, I must not, I think, omit to notice the characters of two Roman citizens, who by different, yet both by honorable methods, obtained a like glory.